Hello students, welcome to this quick review of magnetism. So in this chapter, the first thing that you need to remember is the basics of the bar magnet regarding the theory of the magnetic dipole, how the dipole moment depend on the length or on area, and how the multiple dipoles are there, what would be the net moment. These things you need to remember. So these are the all basics. Then what is the field produced by dipole? Specifically at the axial and equatorial you should remember, and even at a point which is not either axial nor equatorial you can get in terms of theta, and its behavior in external magnetic field, that it in a uniform field it doesn't experience as a force but a torque, and a potential energy associated is minus m dot b, and if from the stable equilibrium position of theta equal to 0 degree, if it is slightly displaced, it will oscillate with a time period 2 pi under root I by mu b mb, whatever you write. And the questions based on cutting magnet and oscillating again, those type of things you should remember. The second part deals with the magnetism produced by the earth, or the terrestrial magnetism. You should know what is the magnetic meridian, what is the magnetic pole, magnetic equator, everything, and the three elements of the earth's magnetic field: inclination, and that BH. The two formula that you use at NI and like this is going to always help you. VBH, that formula, the diagram that you make, I'll try to make in one of the questions to recollect that. And the last part deals with the magnetic properties first of all, and then the classification of materials based on those properties. We have namely three materials: dia, para and ferro. And the basic things you remember, that the magnetic susceptibility is negative but very small. The decrement in the field is very small. Mu r is less than 1, mu is less than mu naught for para. Chi is positive but generally small, mu r greater than 1, mu greater than mu naught. And for ferromagnetic materials, chi is greater than 1, mu r is greater than 1, mu is much greater than the mu naught. Here you can remember it is displayed only by crystallines. Now to the questions. Now the first question that let me take. This is from AIPMT 2014. Following figure shows the arrangement of bar magnets in different configuration. Each magnet has a magnetic moment m. Which configuration has highest net magnetic moment? So you say highest will be when both poles are aligned together. Here there is nothing. Here they are aligned oppositely, so I know this is going to be the minimum. This is going to be the minimum. Here this is perpendicular, so you can directly make it out root under root m1 square plus m2 square, that is root 2m. Here the angle is 30 and here the angle is 60. So you remember, whenever you are adding two vectors, smaller the angle, larger will be the resultant magnitude. So I'll go for option C, that is that part D. The maximum magnetic moment in this case will be exhibited by C. Next one. A steel wire of length small l has a magnetic momentum. It is bent in L shape. The new magnetic moment will be. Now in this such cases, such type of questions have come even in NEET 2013. You have such question. So now see, let's say if I take that south and north, what I can say, the effective pole separation now has become, this is L by root 2, L by root 2, that is root 2 times L by 2, that it becomes L by root 2. Initially the pole separation was L, now the separation has become L by root 2, so magnetic moment will also become M by root 2, so go for option B. So you have questions like this bent in the form of arc and something, so you can do similar types. Now when it is placed in an external field, what we have, you have a coil of length this, width this, length and width are given, that means you can calculate the area you can come out as 0.012 meter square. Having 50 turns, number of turns is given, suspended vertically in uniform field of strength 0.2 Weber per meter square, coil's current is given. If the plane of the coil is at an angle 30 degree with the direction of the field, remember plane is at an angle 30 degree, that means normal to the plane or the direction of mu vector or m vector, which is normal to the plane. So here our theta that we use will be 60 degree between the normal and that field. So the torque exerted by the field, so you require that same torque in opposite sense, and that torque I can write as mb sine 60, and m you know that is equal to nia, so that is niab sine of 60. So what is n? Number of turns you have as 50, the current is 2, and the area is 0.012, b is 0.2, sine 60 is root 3 by 2. So this is what you have. So what we will now have, this is 2 to get cancelled, 50 into 0.2, that would be 10, 10 into 0.012, that is 0.12 into root 3 that we will be getting. So 0.12 into root 3, that would be 0.12 into 1.732, so 12 2s are 24, 12 3s are 36, 10 2 38, 12 7s are 84, 7, 12 1s are 12, and that is 20, so it is 0.207. So I'll go for 0.20 nanometer, that would be the most appropriate out of all the choices. Next one. You have a bar magnet which is hung by a thin cotton thread in a uniform horizontal magnetic field and is in equilibrium. Energy required to rotate it by 60 degrees W. Now the torque required to keep in the new position is. So it was in equilibrium, that means at theta equal to 0 degree to theta equal to 60 degree, if you turn, the energy required or the work required W external, that is W which is given, which is U final minus U initial, that would be minus mb cos 60, minus becomes mb cos 0. So cos 60 is 1 by 2, cos 0 is 1, so that comes out as mb by 2. So mb by 2 is equal to W. Now torque required in this position as we did above, that would be mb sin 60, that is root 3 mb by 2, so that simply is root 3 W. So you require this root 3 W torque magnitude to be keeping it in equilibrium. Now this is a very interesting one, just listen to it. The midpoints of two small magnetic dipoles, just remember, two small magnetic dipoles of length d in end-on positions are separated by a distance x. X is much greater than their width. The force between them is proportional to x to the power minus n, where n is. Same question is for electric dipoles also. You can have like this pp, here you have that mm, that is one and the same thing. So what we have, let's say this is mu1 or m1 we write, so let it be m1 and let it be m2. So how to check the force on this? Because let's say in the field of m1, the field of m1 is not uniform, it is varying field here. So m2 will experience a force, and in the varying field we have that formula p d by dx. Here we will have m2 db1 by dx or dr, whatever you write, let's say by dr. And we know the field due to 1 would be at the axial point is 2 mu naught, or you can have upon 4 pi into m1 by r cube. So if I differentiate it, what will I get? This will become 2 mu naught m1 m2 by 4 pi, and if we differentiate r cube, that would be minus 3 upon r to the power 4. So that minus sign is only for the sense of the direction. So we can directly say f is proportional to r to the power 4 or x to the power 4, whatever we are saying here, x to the power minus 4. So we'll go for option D here. The same question is being asked in electric dipoles also. You can do this. Now the magnetic needle of vibration magnetometer makes 12 oscillations per minute. Always remember, oscillations per minute is frequency, not time period. In the horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field, when an external short bar magnet is placed at some distance along the axis of the needle in the same line, it makes 15 oscillations per minute. That means the frequency increases. If the pole of the bar magnet are interchanged, the number of oscillations it will make per minute is. Now this is a nice one. So first of all, this 12 oscillation frequency I can write as 1 upon 2 pi under root of mb by I. So it is BH, that is the earth field, you can say mbH by I. M and I will remain the same. So 12 is equal to 1 upon 2 pi under root of mbH by I. And when you place this at what we can say, a bar magnet is placed on the axis, the field will be increased definitely because frequency is increasing, that is 1 upon 2 pi. I can write that m BH plus B due to magnet, I can say upon I, and that is 15. Now if you reverse it, you know the fields will subtract it out, and if the fields will subtract it out, so what will now become, you have to find that particular frequency. So that required frequency would be 1 upon 2 pi under root of m times BH minus BM by I. Now how to get this particular value BH minus BM now? So how to get this BH minus BM? The first thing is, what you can do, you can square it and subtract it out. So if you square and subtract it out, so what you will get, if you square and subtract it out and let's say multiply it by 2. So if we have this 144 into 2, I can write it as 288, and 15 square is 225, and what we will have 1 upon 4 pi square, I can take it as common, m by I can take as common, 2BH minus BH will become BH minus BM, that is we were searching for. So just take this root, this would be f square simply. So this f squared term comes out as 8 and 5, 3, and this is 8 and 2, that is 6. So it would be root 63 f you can directly go for in this particular case. So this is simple manipulation you need to do. Next one. The length of a magnet is large compared to its width and breadth. The time period of its oscillation in a magnetometer is 2 seconds. Now the magnet is cut along its length into 3 equal parts and they are placed on each other with their like poles together. The time period of their combination is, it is cut along its length. Normally cut along its length means if you are cutting it like this, but here from the feeling that I am getting, because they are put on each other, otherwise because if you have cut them like that and you put them together, there is no difference. So here the question wants to say it has cut like this. So there is some issue in the language, but this is a very common question you will see in many books. So now the each part has 1/3 the length. Because the length is 1/3, just remember this fact. If I compare this single piece now, that was having length L, this is having length L by 3. So if it has a magnetic moment m0, it will have m0 by 3. If it was having moment of inertia I0, just remember it will have a moment of inertia I0 by 3 cube. Now why 3 cube? Because moment of inertia is always proportional to mass times length square. And if you do it in two parts, so mass will become 1/3, length has become 1/3, so it will basically become 1 by 3 cube. So when you do this new time period, it would be 2 pi. Instead of m, you will write m0 by 3, and instead of it, you will write I0 by 3 cube into b. That is what you are going to write in this. Okay, I have written it in word. For frequency I was writing 2 pi I0 by 3 cube upon m0 by 3 into b. So that basically will directly come out as t0 by 3. So time period becomes 1/3, and if you place one over other, it doesn't make any difference because the m and I both increases by same factor. So it will become t by 3, that would be 2 by 3 seconds. So just remember such type of questions. If you are not familiar or if you are feeling slightly difficult, do these questions again, because these questions do have come in the examination, so you can't ignore. Now these are some test yourself question. Take the screenshot of first these two questions, take a screenshot for now, take of these two, and you try to do them. Now the next one related to the Earth's magnetic field. The Earth's magnetic field lines resemble that of a dipole at the center of the Earth. That is the theory we have, that is the model we have. If the magnetic moment of the dipole is close to 10 to the power 22 into 8 ampere meter square, the value of the Earth's magnetic field near the equator is. So equator is equatorial point, so the field at equatorial point you know is magnitude wise mu naught upon 4 pi m by r cube. So mu naught by 4 pi you all know is 10 to the power minus 7. M is given 8 into 10 to the power 22, and now r cube. The radius of the Earth given in the question, that you know 6400 kilometers, 6.4 into 10 to the power 6 to the power 3. So you have to check the magnitude here. So 22 and 7, this is 10 to the power 15 into 8, and if I do, this is 6.4 whole cube into 10 to the power 8. So it is 10 to the power minus 3 into 8, and it would be 6.4 into 6.4 into 6.4, 3 times you can have. And you know 1 Gauss is 10 to the power minus 4 Tesla, so I can write it as 80 upon 6.4 whole cube. You can write that much Gauss. Now 6 cube is 216, you know. 6 cube is 216, so if I look at the option, if I take it as 216 only, if I do this 80 upon 216, I know it would be around 1/3. 1/3 means it would be around 0.33, or it could be slightly greater than that. But because it is definitely going to be greater than that, it would be lesser than this value, so I can go for 0.32 Gauss without going for actual calculation, just by the data here. So you can do like this. Now I am not taking a very simple BHB vertical question. I have taken this one, the question which has come I think in 18 or 17. Based on that, calculate the real angle of dip if a magnet is suspended at an angle of 30 degree to the magnetic meridian. The dip needle makes an angle of 45 degree with the horizontal. Now just remember, I want to take some theory here. If the magnet is oscillating, we say if the magnet is free to oscillate only in the horizontal plane. If it oscillates in horizontal plane, that means the torque you need is perpendicular to that. So the B vertical won't produce a torque perpendicular to in this direction. So definitely if in the horizontal plane, if you are oscillating it in horizontal plane, only BH is responsible. And if you have a vertical plane which is exactly the magnetic meridian, if you have it oscillating in a magnetic meridian only, so if you have it in magnetic meridian here, the complete field is in this plane, so the complete B is effective. So complete B will be effective. But now what you have done, you instead of magnetic meridian, you have taken a vertical plane at an angle 30 degree to it. Let's say like this. You have taken a plane like this. So what happens now, this is, let's say what you say is the B vertical, and this is what you say is the B horizontal actual. Now in that the plane I have drawn backwards, let's say at this angle which is given as 30 degree, I can say the horizontal component will be reduced. In this along that would BH dash would be equal to BH cos 30, though the B vertical dash will still remain the same. So if I draw in that again, that 10 I dash, that the apparent dip I will have, that would be BV dash upon BH dash, and BV dash is BV, but BH dash is BH cos 30. So BV by BH, that is the real dip that we call as 10 I, and this is cos 30. So what you are given, the dip makes angle 45 degree with the horizontal, that is what we have the apparent dip, that is 10 I dash, that is 1. So 10 I would be equal to 1 into cos 30, that is root 3 by 2, so that is tan inverse root 3 by 2. You can go for option A in this case. So just remember here, this I dash is the apparent dip in that plane, while the tan I is the true dip at that particular point in the earth. Now these were the two questions. Now on the magnetic materials we are taking the first one. That's an easy one that you must have done. 4 lightweight rod sample ABCD separated suspended by threads. Bar magnet slowly brought near each sample and following observations are made. A is feebly repelled. You know repulsion is done, and that is feebly is done by paramagnetic material, by diamagnetic material, sorry. So A is diamagnetic, so none of the option is given, so I know this is dia. B is feebly attracted, so you will say it to be para. So B is para, you have this option, go for option A. C is strongly attracted, that means it would be ferro. D remains unaffected, that means it's a non-magnetic material. So as per the options, only B is coming out to be correct. Now look at this one. A rod of a dia material is placed in a non-uniform strong magnetic field. Which of the following shows the alignment of the rod? Because they tend to repel the field, they want to be in the region where the field is minimum. So just remember, they will become normal to this pole. So this is the option D. You should remember this. This will align itself perpendicular to this like this. So option D would be the answer. Next one. You have a bar magnet of length 3 cm, area is given, and a bar and magnetic moment is given. Intensity of magnetization of the bar magnet will be. Now intensity of magnetization, that you call it I, or what we call as M, whatever you write, let's say I, that is magnetic moment induced per unit volume. So magnetic moment is 3 ampere meter square and volume is given as 3 into 6, that is 6 into 10 to the power minus 6 meter cube we can do. So this would be an ampere meter and it would be 1 by 2 into 10 to the power 6 ampere meter we will have. So you can write it as 5 into 10 to the power 5 ampere per meter. Go with option D here. Next. 3 identical bars ABC are made of different magnetic materials. When kept in a uniform field, the field lines around them look like. So just see what we can make it out. In the B, the lines are trying to leave it or trying to escape it. That means B is definitely going to be diamagnetic. So B is diamagnetic and we are left with only one choice. C, the lines are pulled in, so that would be paramagnetic, and in A all the lines are pulled in, that means A is ferro. So A is ferro, C is para and B is diamagnetic. Go for option A. Next one. An example of a perfect diamagnet is superconductor. So just remember that Meissner's effect that we study in NCERT, that's a small paragraph. This implies that when a semiconductor is put in magnetic field of intensity B, the magnetic field inside the superconductor will become 0. In a perfect superconductor, the magnetic field inside will become 0. So that the magnetic field inside the superconductor will be 0. Go for option B. So this was a very small revision from my end. If you want some more, just put in comment box. I'll try to reach out to you.